everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Tiger Talk. My name is Ever Criddell, and I'm here with United Houma Nation's very own Grayhawk Perkins. Describe your experience growing up in the United Houma Nation.
Well, I guess my experience is growing up as a native and a person of the United Houma Nation. Um, Growing up knowing I'm native and I guess going to school and having people kind of put in a school that didn't have a lot of natives in it, and kind of you got pointed at a lot, and when they found out you were Indian, you were more like I don't know. They treat you like you're something that don't really exist. Like, wow, you're like a leprechaun or a unicorn or something. Some mystical, magical creature. And a lot of times, or you're made fun of. And so, but that was being out in the schools and whatever out in public. But growing up as a native, I always knew who I was. And always knew, about I had my grandparents and my mom and dad and my aunts and uncles. I always was around a community, so there was not a time in my life that I wasn't native or wasn't Homa, because it was always around me.
How did you get into music?
I don't know. I guess I was born with music, I was born with music and storytelling. I mean, my whole life. Um, um, when I was young, my father would bring me with him to certain places, and there was always music. There was a jukebox or something, and but as far as playing music, I didn't see a lot of people play music. I just liked listening to music, and when I was very young, I started showing interest in playing percussions, really, because I kind of banged on everything, um, I got, I think my father, when I was real young, decided, well, I'm gonna try to, even though he didn't make a lot of money, he got me a small drum set, and I guess that's where it started, and. And as far as the part of the music where I write my own music and write my own lyrics and do my own um, arrangements and composition. I've been doing that since I was 4 years old. My people would give me, uh, candy and drinks at 4 years old. My grandmother used to say, my mom said that, people would pay me drinks in nickels at 4 years old to tell them stories. So I started really young, and it just all came together, I guess.
Why is traditional music so special to you?
Well, for me, the way I do the music, I start off with the rattle and the hand drum. As far as Southeastern Native Americans like us, we're stomp dancers. And I wanted to do Native music that was a little, not a little, but a lot different than other people. Um, we are stomp dancers, and we do a lot of stuff with rattles and a call and answer. And so basically, a lot of my traditional music or my music on my albums start off with me just a cappella with a rattle. And then, I write my lyrics, and then I add the traditional rhythm of the rattle, the call and answer. And then I bring in, since I'm a New Orleans boy, I bring in the New Orleans blues and funk, and so I basically do something that's a little different. A lot of people do powwow, and I don't do powwow. I don't do the drum beats of a powwow and what they do, which is foreign to us. Strictly, if you know stomp music and you listen to, like, if I do a lot of work in New Orleans, but one of the programs I do is I talk about the merging a couple of cultures. Uh, I basically start off with my rhythms as a stomp dancer, bring in my vocals. It could be in the Mobilian language or in English, either one. And then what I do is I start bringing in the beats I heard growing up on the streets in New Orleans. Some of it had to do with African, some of it had to do with Caribbean, but New Orleans blues and funk, and hanging around guys like Dr. John and the Meters and stuff like that. Also bringing in the traditional music. I guess that what makes my music a little different and a little more unique. But I always make sure that I always started off with the mindset of the rattle and the chants of a southeastern native.
Google classifies you as an actor. Please tell us about your acting experience.
Every day. Don't we all act every day? Yeah. I've actually worked in a lot of documentaries and a couple of movies and things like that. So, plus every time I get on stage as a storyteller, I'm an actor because I act out a lot of my stories. Uh, so, yeah, I mean, if you get on online and you see some of the videos and films I've been in and just different things that I've done. Uh, to me, every day is an acting day. And even when I sit down and have a cup of coffee with somebody at a coffee shop, I'm acting. And I'm acting as a Grayhawk. But I've done movies that like there was one in particular I did where I was brought in as a consultant, and they wanted me to teach the people how to pronounce the words, and I wind up rewriting some of the script, and it was a Marvel comic movie, and I rewrote some of the script, and I was trying to teach the people how to do it, and the director and the star of the movie said, "Why are we having him do that? He's native, he looks the part. Let him do it." And they said, "Well, you want to do it, Grayhawk?" And I went, I'd rather not, but if that's what you want, I'll do it. And I did it. And acting and performing is just something that comes natural to me, I guess.
Going back to the music, what type of music do you make?
What type of music I like? I like everything, really. I mean, when if right now I'm working on two albums, and one of them is a lot of New Orleans blues and funk with the native rhythm. We call my music Native American blues and funk from New Orleans. And so I like the blues, I like the funk, I like prog music. Yeah, I like progressive rock. I like classical. I've got a large collection of classical music. I learned music in school. I've learned concert music, symphony music, and everything else like that. So I grew up. When I got in school, I pursued uh, a couple of different instruments, and but I got into a lot. To me, as far as music goes, I don't like things that are too simple. I like kind of complicated stuff, and I like stuff that has a meaning with a lot, not too much repetition. And so I like groups like Yes and Jethro Tull and Cream Crimson and things like that. I like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and things like groups like that. And uh, as a teacher in a classroom, um, a lot of my students throughout the years got into hip hop and rap, and so I started listening to a lot of that. And some of the young native groups that are coming up do hip hop and rap, and I love it. And I actually did on stage at Jazz Fest Native American rap with one of my friends who was a performer that did spoken word, and my group came in, and I followed him with what he was doing, and I did it in my language, and I did it in a rap. And he turned around and went, "I didn't know you could do that." I said, "Dude, I can do anything I put my mind to it." And so I have done it, and I do like it. I never really got into country music that much. It's too sad for me, because there's a lot of always poor, poor, pitiful me and stuff like that. I never got into that.
Tell us more about some of your albums.
Well, I got one here, and it's called 13 Moons right there. And that was interesting.
Ilap e hamana, nashininak ilap e hamana, nashininak he chami bisa, nashininak he chami bisa, nashininak.
Years ago, back in 2010, I was in the hospital, and it wasn't looking too good for me, and I made it, and I told my wife, I said, "Bring me my notebook. I'm always writing. I'm always writing." Well, I was teaching. I taught creative writing in school, and music and presentation in school. Um, and I said, "Bring me my notebooks." And I started writing. I said, "I want to do an album called 13 Moons because we have 13 moons in a year. Southeastern people, all Earth people have 13 moons in a year, and it's a balanced moon. It's down to the minute." And I said, "I'm going to write chants for each moon. What goes on in that moon? What ceremonies going on in that moon? What do you collect at that time? What if you're building houses or whatever?" And so I started writing lyrics for each moon. And then I came home. I got better, and I came home at my house, and I took my rattle, and I made a chant with each one of those things that I wrote, and using either a hand drum or a rattle, and I recorded it here, and I made a CD out of it. I wasn't planning on doing anything with it. I just wanted to do it. It was in Mobile. It was something that if somebody got their hands on it and they read the lyrics and they learned how to sing the songs, they would get a good idea of our language and pretty much get to speak our language because I used a lot of the words. And so I recorded this thing, and I was sitting in my car at the parish building here in St. Tammany, and I'm playing the CD I made. And one of the ladies from the parish president's office passes by, and she tapped my window. She knew me. She said, "Where did you get that album?" And I go, "Yeah, I made it at my house." And she says, "Could I get a copy of that?" And I handed the one I had, 'cause I had the master at home. And about five months later, I get a phone call from the parish president and the office and said, "You won Musical Artist of the Year for 2010 for your album 13 Moons." And I go, "What album? 13 Moons." They had been listening to that album at the parish building, and everybody loved it. And so they gave me Man of the Year award for music for an album I never produced. It's like so. I went, "Wow," and I had 2 albums out already, but that was a surprise. So at the awards ceremony, there was a representative from the, French consulate there, and she heard it. She said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, she called me up. She said, "In France, they're interested in your album 13 Moons, because it was a trade language that the French picked up. Would you be willing to record that album in France?" And I went, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Who's gonna pay the bill?" She said, "No, no, we'll take care of it." I said, "Okay, well, I'll do it then." And, so they hooked me up with the French government hooked me up with a group called the Mescal Unit, which travels around the world looking for languages that are almost lost, that are music. And I got in touch with them. I sent them a couple of my songs, and they did an arrangement in progressive jazz with what I sent them, French progressive jazz. And they sent it back to me. And I went, wow, I like that. And so I sat and I did some of the arrangements and sent back. So we were sending it back and forth to each other. Finally, we did 6 songs, and in French, the French said, uh, "Would you like to do a concert tour around New Orleans, Lafayette, and all, to see if people like it? We'll send the group there." I'd never met them, but we just Skyped like we're doing now, and never met them, and most of them couldn't really speak English that well. And I said, "Yeah." So they came in, and we practiced for about 2 days. We went out, we played New Orleans, and we went to Lafayette and a couple, and it was a big success. So they said, "Well, let's get together, finish up the 7 that are left, and then you come to France and do a tour." So we finished it up, and we never played together again. And I went to France, and we did a couple of rehearsals, and then we went on a tour of France. Every time we went, places were packed. They loved it. It was great. So they decided we're going to record it. So I recorded the album in France, and it went over big. And that's the way my life is most of the time. I just do stuff and things happen.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
Sitting here talking to you.
I'm honored. Above the orchestra and the symphony? How could
Everything's an
I?
accomplishment to me. This is part of my accomplishments. I've got a lot of accomplishments, but every time I do something new, to me, that's a big accomplishment. This is another one. I think, being recognized by the Library of Congress and being in the Louisiana archives, that's good. But I think one of the things that I guess that hit me the most is my grandson, telling his class that his grandpa was famous and that I was something special. And to me, that was pretty good. Um, they all think a lot of me, because they see me in the media all the time, and they always tell their friends, just Google my grandpa, you'll find out what he does, and they sit there 10 hours watching stuff and going, wow, and but I guess my accomplishment is, like I said, being here with you, and but also, um, one day I was in my 30s, and this was a long time back. I was in my 30s, and I got invited to a gathering in my community, in the Houma community. And when I walked in my 30s, all the elders that was sitting along the wall stood up, and they had a banner, "We love you, Grayhawk," and all the kids had made scrapbooks about me. And I went to the table and saw these scrapbooks that these kids in my tribe made of what I was doing, and having these elders stand up when I walked in and giving me that honor. I didn't think I deserved it, but it was like right now said at that point, everything else was just extra, because how many people get that? Have their elders stand up because they respect you, and you're a quarter or half their age. And it made me realize I was doing the right things. And so now, I remember what I was told when I was very young, that, to do the right things and be a good person, and you're going to be a role model, you have to always think that whatever you're doing, there's a child watching you, and that makes you do everything right. And when he said, the person that told me that was in my family, an elder, and if you're in the middle of a desert and you're thinking about doing something bad. What if a child comes out of nowhere and sees you doing that? You just affected that kid's life. And so even at a young age, I remember that. I have a story that I wrote about that where, um, you know, in the story, my grandmother tells me to come do something that my little cousin needs to take a certain type of medicine, and if I take the medicine, the little boy would take it. And she said he follows you around like a little puppy. You might think that's an aggravation, but that's the highest form of flattery because that's who he wants to be like you. And it's a lot of responsibility because you are showing him what kind of person to be. And I learned that at 12 years old. And and so having someone follow me doesn't aggravate me. Having a child coming at my heels and want to do everything makes me realize how much that person really loves me, and wants to be like me. And it also puts a lot of responsibility on me because I have to be at my top at 100% all the time. And that means that you're going to live a good life. You're going to be a good person. And that's what I fashioned my life after.
In 2020, you received the title of Cultural Standard Barrier for Louisiana. What does this title entail?
Well, it shows that the state of Louisiana noticed me and that it picked me as a representative of Louisiana, that they were proud to have me as part of Louisiana and that they've noticed what I do. And to be made a culture bearer for the state and for my tribe, um, it's a big pat on the back saying you've done good and that you represent all of us in a good way. And it made me feel good. I've been given a lot of awards in my life, and I've thrown a lot of awards in the garbage can because I really don't look at awards that great because a lot of people get awards for nothing most of the time. And out of all the awards I've gotten in trophies and awards, I've only kept four. And those I felt were the ones that made me feel that people have noticed me and that I did a good job. Not just because I was there, but of what I did. And back in the 90s, I was given a Man of the Year award for education, tourism, and a few other things. And I beat a lot of people out for that. And I was only in my 30s. And to beat out the people in that field statewide, that was pat on the back. And to be Man of the Year or Person of the Year at a young age, I've kept that plaque. The governor, they gave me a big party in Shreveport. Um, and I kept that plaque because to me, I was nominated for that. And there were about a couple thousand people nominated in the state for that, and I got it. And yeah, I felt good about that one. And it was one I always look at. And having the governor, lieutenant governor, send me a award or proclamation saying that he was proud of me being a representative of the state of Louisiana and making me one of the cultural bearers that year. I kept that one.
You talked about your work internationally and, you know, the fusion of the music that you heard growing up and then influences from New Orleans, your family life, and your teaching experience. How do you feel that you've made a difference in the community?
Well, I was 2 years ago. Um, I think 2 years ago, I was in Alabama and I got a phone call. And they had started a new parade here called the Boogafalia Parade. It's like the equivalent to Bacchus and Rex on the other side, but that big over here. Well, that parade hadn't running about 100 years. And they were going to do that historic parade. And I'm in Alabama, and I'm running this big Native American festival there in Alabama for the university. And I get a call, and they said it was unanimous. Everybody in St. Tammany Parish, people that were involved, suggested and voted that you be grand marshal for this new parade. At first, I didn't know if I was going to want to do it. And then I thought, 100 years ago, my people could not walk down the street of that city without either being harassed or maybe even be hung, and or put in jail. And now they want me to be grand marshal, and they want to give me the key to the city, and they want to give me a proclamation. I said, yeah. And when I rode in that parade, and when I took the proclamation and the key to the city from the mayor and the parish president, I looked over at him and said, you're giving me the city back for 2 days. It took 200 years, 150 years for this to happen. I might not give it back to you, you know? And he kind of looked at me, and they heard me over the microphone and everybody kind of laughed. But I was serious because I thought the spirits that are around me right now in this city are looking at me and saying, you did it. 100 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do this. Now you've been given this by all the people at one time that would have not allowed you in this city. And as I rode on that float, the thousands of people that hollered my name out and told me they loved me and that they knew me. And I looked in the audience and saw these hundreds and hundreds of faces, and I knew them all. And it was because of what I do. Um, Being in the classroom, doing the things that I do, documentaries and doing storytelling and doing lectures and working with children and all those things. When you get that, you realize that people take notice and that you've done something that has affected. When people walk up to you, like this weekend, and hundreds of people walk up to you and hug you because they're actually happy to see you and said that you've done something or said something to them that changed their life. I guess I was put in the right place. I was put in a situation that I get adults that were my students at one time grab me and hug me and say something that I told them when they were little or they were young, and it stuck with them. I got hundreds of stories like that. University of Alabama, 44, been with them working with that project for 38 years, 37 years. And every year I talk to at least 40,000 people. And most of those people remember me. How can you not think that you've done something? They don't run away from me. If I don't show up at an event, they'll call me and say, "Where are you?" If I don't show up at the gym in the morning, I get phone calls. "Where are you?" If I don't show up at the cat coffee house in the morning, people go, "Where are you?" They look forward to seeing me. And right there, that's just enough to say that, God, I guess I've affected a lot of people. And it's the ripple effect. What you push, what you give out, get returned, and I get that every day.